People in our own backyards are hurting. There are insecurities around food, economics, mental health, access to justice, healthcare, and our society continues to become more divisive. But there is hope. Right here in Chicagoland, there are people and organizations who are on the front lines, working to bring about positive and transformative change. Each week, we're going to meet some of these agents of change and examine how they are spurring innovative ideas and finding solutions to push our society forward in a more just direction. I'm Sufyan Sohel, and this is Change Agents. Good evening. We all get older. Aging can be challenging. Older adults often deal with a variety of health and social issues. Many live on a fixed income in this ever more expensive country of ours. They often face loneliness and conditions that were made worse by the COVID pandemic. Throw in a disability and life can be even more challenging. From physical to invisible disabilities such as depression or anxiety, older adults often struggle to age well when dealing with these situations. For these populations, the issues they face can be isolating and overwhelming, like guardianship, debt, divorce, estate planning, just to name a few. Protecting the rights of older adults and preventing their exploitation, abuse, and neglect is critical. To help us learn more about these challenges and why it is so difficult for our disabled and our elderly to sometimes receive justice, I am so pleased to introduce my first guest tonight, Caroline Manley, Executive Director of the Center for Disability and Elder Law. Caroline, thank you so much for joining me tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. Caroline, help me understand this problem. I'm a lawyer. I've spent my time doing civil rights, human rights work. My parents are getting older, and I'm seeing them having to deal with a whole set of issues that they didn't have a decade ago or 15 years ago. You're kind of on the ground trying to help people navigate some of these things. Can you help me understand this better?
Sure. So at the Center for Disability and Elder Law, we provide direct civil legal services to seniors and people with disabilities. And really, the most important thing is to be proactive. So we have a number of programs that are really focused on proactive legal services, trying to get out in front before a crisis happens. And that's something that really every family should be considering. So our top areas of practice include end-of-life planning, powers of attorney, simple wills and transfer on death instruments for residential real estate. We do collections and consumer work, as well as some family law, guardianships, and a lot of housing work. So landlord-tenant as well as real property. But the issue is really that everybody in their lifetime usually encounters some sort of legal issue. And what people are trying to do is find help. And there's just not enough help that exists, especially for people who are low income.
So are a lot of the constituents you're serving, are they low income backgrounds?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So we primarily serve individuals who are lower income. And really, when you think about people as they age or people with disabilities, many people are on fixed incomes. They're receiving their living from Social Security disability,
Sure.
Social Security retirement, or supplemental security income, which is just over $900 a month for people who are on that source of income.
That's nothing. But why this niche? Like, why is there a need for an organization like yours to exist? Why can't they go to another legal aid service provider? What are some of the heightened challenges that they are experiencing?
Sure. So number one is just people who have, like our organization, who have the lens for knowing what some of the issues are when we are working with people who are older adults or living with a disability. What's really important that we do is that we meet people where they are. So when you think about being able to access legal services broadly, there are many wonderful legal aid agencies that serve the city of Chicago and Cook County, lots of fantastic partners that we have and that we cross-refer to. What we really focus on doing is making sure that we partner with many social service agencies. So again, we can hopefully be as proactive as possible or be connected to people as soon as possible when they do have a legal issue. We do a lot of our services actually in the communities where our clients live. So we have a variety of programs that are focused on either being regularly in people's communities or coming out to do a discrete legal issue, like doing powers of attorney or housing preservation work right there where people live, and usually partnering with a resource that they already know and trust.
I like that you said that you're going to the communities. Which are the communities that you have a strong presence in?
So we have some community clinics that where we go monthly. So those are in communities like Bellwood. We have North Riverside. We have Chicago Heights down south. We're also in the city of Chicago, in Uptown, in Hyde Park. One of our newest programs, we are actually going to be based in both Austin and Auburn Gresham a couple times a week. So there are two partners that we've had for a long time, the Greater Auburn Gresham Development Corporation, and they just opened a beautiful new facility called the Healthy Lifestyle Hub on 79th Street. And then Build Inc. in Austin, which just had its ribbon cutting very recently, and we're going to be there. And so those are two examples of places where we're not only there to provide the legal services, but we're there to learn more about the community needs. And I always say we're like a puzzle piece. All of these service providers that we work really closely with, they're the life of these communities. And we are able to come in and provide just a little bit of the puzzle to help strengthen communities and make sure that seniors and people with disabilities have the access to legal support that they need.
That's great. I want to dissect that a little bit further, that you're saying that you're a puzzle piece. And I think that's important because oftentimes I think we go in to solve a problem, and while we're solving that, we realize a client may have 30 other things in their life they're dealing with. And as you said earlier, if some of the outlying issues can be addressed, they may not have some of these problems that you're there to solve. So can you share a story with me of a client that you had? And I'm going to ask for several, but just the one that we were talking earlier, that you have a favorite story that you'd like to share. Can you share that with us, please?
Yeah, and this is a great example of how a family came to us for one need, and we ended up being able to assist them with several. And so this family initially came to us to get guardianship of children who have disabilities. All 4 children in this family had the same very rare medical condition, which was discovered when the first child unfortunately passed away from it. And then they discovered through genetic testing that it was this rare disease, and that the other children were quite likely also either carriers or would have the condition themselves. And after that, it was discovered that all 3 did. And that father came to us because he was trying to be appointed decision maker for those 3 children so he could coordinate medical care, public benefits. What a lot of people don't know is that when somebody turns 18, they are presumed capable of making all of their own decisions. And so parents often can be confused if they have a child who has recently turned 18, or even later on has some sort of medical crisis, and they're trying to figure out what's going on. And the default is, we can't tell you. Where's your legal authority to learn this information and then to make decisions? And so he came to us about getting guardianship of these 3 children. We were able to assist with that. And a year later, he came back because every year a report has to be filed with the court. So he stopped by our office and was asking about how to do that. So I was helping him with that. And he let me know that he had just received a voucher to get community-based housing. And so these vouchers are wonderful in terms of helping people be able to afford housing. But he didn't need just any housing. He needed an totally accessible, because the children utilized different mobility devices, an accessible unit that had a bedroom for each child due to their medical equipment. And so he had only been approved for 3 bedrooms, even though they really needed 4. And so what we were able to do in that case was then help appeal to get him an additional bedroom, as well as additional funds on that voucher to be able to find an accessible unit. So that's just one example of how one thing led to another, and there were compounding legal issues on top of that.
That's so great that you're able to support them. What are some of the, government's only providing so much service. How does an individual like this gentleman go about figuring out what steps he's got to take? Who does he call? Who does he reach out to?
Well, that's the thing. There's usually many people that people are reaching out to.
But not probably the right people.
And that's part of the trouble, is
Yeah.
that often people are given a list of numbers to try, and they kind of work their way down it. What I think a lot of people don't understand is how challenging it is to find these services. It's a full-time job.
Overwhelming, probably.
Yes, completely overwhelming to be calling place after place, leaving messages, being placed on hold. And quite frankly, people can get frustrated and give up because it's so hard. And that's why our community relationships are so important, because they usually have somebody that they trust that's working closely with them, a social worker. For some of our guardianship programs, it's a teacher at a school. For our housing preservation work, it's wonderful agencies throughout Cook County that provide that direct housing support, like Neighborhood Housing Services or the Greater Chatham Initiative. And people go there because they know that resource and they're looking to find out where else can they turn. And they trust the referral from that provider.
Because of that, then you probably have to spend a lot of time and energy going out and building those relationships so people know you exist. We've had, a few guests here where, sometimes even people in their own communities don't know that they're there. So what does that effort on your end look like?
Yeah, it's years, it's decades in the making in terms of having those partnerships. And I think the most important thing that we do is we're present. So again, we are in the community. Our staff members very rarely are at their desk 5 days a week. They're spending time going into the communities, doing outreach presentations, doing the direct legal work. And so it's by being there and by becoming a trusted resource that people see time and time again that those community partners feel like they can refer people to us. But it definitely doesn't happen overnight. I started our community clinic programs when I was fresh out of law school, and it was kind of one of those things where I thought, if I build it, people will come. People need legal services, and we're here.
Did they come?
Some came easier than others,
Sure.
but there were certain communities where no one came initially, even though we knew that our constituents lived there.
Geographical or what type of community?
Very geographical.
Okay.
And Austin is an example of a community where we knew that there were lots of older adults who were homeowners who we could bring our housing services to and make sure that people had plans in place to preserve intergenerational wealth and to help people with other legal issues that were coming, that we knew were there. And it was not enough to just show up.
Was it a lack of trust?
Yes, and also kind of being an outsider. We hadn't been there, and so we had provided services to people, but in terms of physically being there, it took a lot of time. And then once we built that trust, it took off. And so we went from having no appointments every month to having to open a second day a month because we were overwhelmed by the demand. And now we're going to have our new program and be there multiple times per week.
Oh, that's fantastic.
But it took time.
A lot of what we've been seeing is there's so many organizations out there who want to do good and who have the intention to do good. But there's so much mistrust from the communities they're trying to serve because they don't know who you are. And as you said, you're an outsider coming in and trying to build those relationships. But taking an even step back further, I think there's communities out there that we just don't even know the issues they're facing, and one are the two groups of people that you're working with. Why do you think that it's an issue that broader social justice movements or broader communities aren't as cognizant about or talking about?
Oh boy, that's so many factors. I think one, when we look at older adults and especially lower income, older adults and lower income people with disabilities, there's just not that focused attention. And yet we all have people in our lives who are older or who are experiencing a disability. Many people are experiencing a disability. And so it just, it's challenging. It's really challenging to know, why different areas aren't getting the same level of focus. But the good news is that there's wonderful groups out there who are ringing the bell. And again, great partner agencies that we have. Age Options, which is in Cook County, in suburban Cook County, oversee the Older Americans Act funding, and they do wonderful focus on issues and kind of ringing the bell about needing more funds to support caregivers, to support food programs. And then within the disability community, Access Living, Equip for Equality. So there's just all these wonderful groups that are out there doing that great work. And then we, again, try to figure out what piece of the puzzle are we and where can we be supportive.
That sounds so great. Hold your thoughts. We'll be right back.
I'm Melissa Donaldson, and I like to call myself a curious boomer. Through that curiosity, I have found that when we engage with people from different generations, we are more alike than we are different. On Generation Flex, we will discuss the day's most interesting topics and discover each other's unique perspectives together. Join us Mondays at 7 p.m. on CAN TV 19, cantv.org, and on the new CAN TV Plus app.
Welcome back. Caroline, thank you again for joining us tonight and sharing all the amazing things that you and CDIL and your team is doing. I want to hear more. Tell me another story. Tell me about another client. I think it's helpful for me and our viewers to hear about the stories and what people are experiencing from the communities that you're serving.
Well, I'll tell you a little bit about our housing preservation work
Sure.
and then how it's impacted some of our clients. So we have a program called our Housing Preservation Project, and it's really aimed at reaching out to senior homeowners and doing a 3-part program with them. We double check that they are getting all of the property tax exemptions to which they're owed and that they're eligible. We do what we call a home ownership checkup, where we look at title just to see how's everything looking. Is there anything on there that's questionable? Or sometimes people aren't even aware that they're not on title because they live in a home that's been passed down through the generations. And then what we do is a transfer on death instrument. So a transfer on death instrument is what I think is one of the best legal tools that we have at our disposal.
What is that?
It's a super simple document that looks like a deed, but it's not a deed. What it is it says, upon my death, I leave my home to, and then I get to choose. It's 2 pages. It costs about $55 to record it at the Recorder of Deeds office. And then the house doesn't have to go through probate. And so it's a really affordable and incredible way for people to have a succession plan for their home and ensure that it goes to whoever they want it to. Often it is family, but it does not have to be. The transfer on death instrument is just over a decade old at this point. And so it's a great tool that we have now where people don't have to have the expense of a trust and they don't add a family member onto title before death when they can't. It's not easy to change your mind then. The person has to agree to come off of title.
Is that statewide or just citywide or countywide?
It is statewide.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So it's an Illinois law. And then within Cook County, it's recorded at the clerk's office.
So how many of those have you all done?
Oh my gosh, I don't even know. We do probably hundreds every year. And we actually have a brand new program that just started last fall. We're actually in the clerk's office. So Cook County Clerk Karen Yarborough started this help desk, and we're the legal aid partner. So we're present there now once a month to help see people and answer some of their legal questions. And it's all part of this housing preservation project. Again, the idea that we want to make sure that people have access to these tools, these wonderful, wonderful legal tools that can really help preserve communities. Because what happens is if people don't have one of these in place, they may pass and have what's called intestate succession. And I'm trying not to go too into giving a law school class, but really what happens is that there's these default rules about how homes will pass, and it gets really complicated when there's lots of family involved. And it's
ugly.
Ugly and hard to untangle.
Sure.
And quite frankly, a lot of properties are lost because the families then can't access the equity in the home to be able to make necessary repairs or get those tax exemptions. And so that's what spurred this whole program that we have now. And not only have we seen how important it is, one, to our clients, it's also really important to their communities to make sure that we have strong blocks and that we're keeping families in the communities where they grew up, if that's where they want to stay. The other thing that I have learned through this work and through being able to talk to some of our clients is you just get these beautiful stories about how the home came to be, how it was purchased or what happened there. We worked with a client a few years ago, and when I met her, it was a duplex. And I found out that she and her family had lived on the second floor, and on the first floor she had close to 100 foster children come through that home in its history.
Wow. 100?
Yes.
Wow.
And so you think about these clients that we serve and how something as simple as a 2-page document can do so much in terms of honoring people's life work and where their investments went. Most people's largest asset is their home, if they have one. And so being able to really make sure that people get to have the direction for what will happen to that, and then also to make sure that their communities stay strong.
That's so great. I'm so proud of all that work that you're doing. Caroline, I've known you for, I don't want to age ourselves on TV here, but since law school. We went to law school together, and we both actually volunteered together in various community organizations. And I remember that CEDAW was an organization you were volunteering with over a decade ago. And now you're the executive director of this organization. What has kept you connected to this organization, and what keeps you going?
Yeah, I feel so fortunate that I've spent my whole legal career at CEDAW. What's kept me here is our clients and our mission. And it's evolved over the years. When I started at CEDAW, I was an intern, and I was just hungry to learn everything that I could. And then I joined staff as a fellow and got our community clinic program running. And then over the years, I've been able to be really creative there. I had a lot of latitude to try out new things. I worked on a Supreme Court rule and a legislative effort. And now, as the executive director, so much of my joy comes from working with the wonderful community that supports CEDAW, starting first and foremost with our staff. We have an incredible staff that works so hard to serve our clients, and then we're supported by a great board and great funders and great community partners, and it's really just being able to now focus on all of those relationships that keeps me going. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's all the clients, and it's hearing the stories and just knowing that it really matters.
No, I mean, I am so proud of all the work that you've done, and I keep always inspired by just the growth of your organization and just seeing all the great things that you've been doing with CEDAW. So just excellent kudos to you and to your organization. we went to DePaul, and we were both part of the public interest section. The whole theory behind the show is that we all have the ability to go out and do some positive good. And as public interest attorneys, we wholeheartedly believe that to our core, that people out there need our support, and we have that ability to give them that support. You have 2 young children. What do you wish you could tell them right now about the importance of giving back and serving our communities?
That you get back as much as you give every single time. Every single time in my work with CEDL and other volunteerism, it's that, there's altruism there, but there's also the personal satisfaction of knowing that the work that you do makes life better for somebody else. And there's just nothing better than that.
So awesome. Thank you. And I hope that resonates with them as it resonated with me.
I hope so too.
I appreciate it. Thank you for joining me tonight, Caroline. And thank you for your passion to help an often neglected and ignored population in our community. Thank you also to CEDL for providing these invaluable services. We'll be right back with this week's Change in Action.
Hi, I'm Bianca Cotton. Tune in for Behind the Confident Smile, available on CAN TV channels 19 and 21, and also available live streaming at cantv.org.
Welcome back. This week on Change in Action, a community organization doing its part to make Chicago a better place.
Hi, I'm Lovely Brack, founder of From Our Hearts Chicago. With our love bags, we're basically wanting to meet the needs of the homeless, meeting them where they're at, getting them everyday items that we would normally take as, for granted. So making sure they're able to brush their teeth today, making sure they're able to wash their face, making sure they're able to just smell good, whether it's for that day, whether it's for the week. Back in 1992, I attended Jones Commercial High School on State Street in Harrison that was located next to a shelter. And every day for 4 years, in order to walk into Jones Commercial, I had to either encounter the homeless, step around the homeless. Somehow or another, I dealt with the homeless on a daily basis for 4 years. So I always stated that when I became an adult, once I made it big, that I wanted to buy a shelter and assist with giving back to those in need. So fast forward, I did not become rich. I did not become wealthy, shall we say, but I still felt it on my heart to give back. So I chose to reach out to friends, and starting literally, I want to say like in 2016, reached out to one of my friends and asked her if she can cook for me for 100+ people for Thanksgiving. And from there, it just grew into what it is now today. I would say, get out there and do the work with us. I take volunteers for all of my events. Get out there and do the work. Don't just donate the items. Don't just repost the post. Get out there and actually volunteer with me, and get out there and do the work with me so you can see it, so you can feel the rewarding feeling that I feel as well. Not only that, so you can also understand why we do what we do.
Thank you again to Caroline for joining me tonight and for sharing your love, your passion, and your work on behalf of our communities. So many of our communities are struggling, and they often do not know where to look for or where to go for help. I am so very grateful for organizations like the Center for Disability and Elder Law who are out there in our communities offering invaluable support and services to a population that many of us don't think about or often overlook. Writer and journaler Tia Walker wrote, "To care for those who once cared for us is one of the highest honors." The Center for Disability and Elder Law truly epitomizes that care. They show that we all have the power to go out and do a little something to help our neighbors, to give them a little bit of love, a little care. They show that each of us has the potential to be change agents. Let us all be change agents. Thank you, my friends. I will see you next week.